Well, good morning and welcome everyone to the ordinary meeting of Council for Wednesday the 23rd of March 2022. Welcome to councillors, staff. Pastor Chris is joining us this morning. Welcome, Pastor. Councillor Henson's online. Morning, Councillor Henson.
Morning, Mr. Mayor and fellow councillors, managers.
I'd now like to welcome Pastor Chris Downs to provide the opening. Oh no, sorry, opening up open. We have leave of absence first. Sorry, I've jumped the gun, Chris. Come on up, Chris, anyway, and we'll get through some business. First of all, we have requests for leave of absence from Councillor Jones and Councillor Shoemaker. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, second Councillor Froloff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Now move on to item 3, and absolute pleasure to welcome Pastor Chris Downs with us this morning to provide the prayers, the opening prayers. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure you have plenty of people telling you what your job is and how you should do it, so I don't want to add to that today, but my observation from the outside, one of the things you've got to do is you are given a finite amount of resources, as in money, people and skills, to do good and administer on behalf of the community. And the needs pile is a lot bigger than the resources pile. So wisdom would be great for you guys. So the emphasis of my prayer this morning is that may God give you wisdom. Now, I don't know where each of you stand on your belief in God. That doesn't matter this morning. I thank you for the opportunity to come on behalf of the part of the community that does honour and respect and believe in God to ask for his help for you guys and ladies, obviously. Almighty God, we thank you for the place we have in the South Burnett, for the amazing resources in this area, for the beauty. We thank you that there's a lot of grass around at the moment, that the dams are full. We look back to a few years ago when we gathered together in prayer and asked for rain, and we thank you for the provision of that. Father, we thank you for the people you have placed in this role of leadership of the council. We thank you for the skills you've given them, and we just pray that you give them and empower them with wisdom over this next season, as long as they're in this role. Lord, there is so much they have to decide on. So many decisions that come across their path and they don't have full knowledge of what the ramifications are. Lord, we pray you grant them wisdom. We pray for discernment as to when information comes in that they may know what is true and what isn't. Lord, we pray for a sense of discernment in themselves to know when they're speaking the truth and when they're struggling with it. Lord, we're often tempted to deviate from truth for a good cause, but we just pray you'll help them in that. Lord, we just pray for a wisdom into what is good. Lord, there are so many needs in our community, so many needs amongst people, amongst resources, amongst programs. Lord, we just pray that you will give them a sense of good wisdom as to what is the best of the choices they can make to do good in our community. We pray you refresh in each councillor a desire to do their best for the community. Lord, we just thank you for the role that you've given them, and we pray that in this particular session of council, the decisions that come up, there will be a sense of unity and wisdom and bringing disparate ideas together to come to a synthesis that helps people see what's best possible for our community at this time. So we commit them to you and ask your blessing on this council in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you kindly, Pastor Chris. We know you have a busy day doing God's work, as you always do. God bless. Councillor Duff, would you be so kind as to provide recognition of our traditional owners? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Wackalka land, and acknowledge the elders, both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, item 5 is declarations of conflict of interest. Does, councillors, anything on the agenda that you have concerns about that may give rise to a conflict of interest?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, if I may speak.
Councillor Henson?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, just in relation to, and perhaps Mr CEO can give some direction in relation to the confidential section, whether that be handled when that comes to the table in under that section. Yeah, but that's just my concern in one of those items on the agenda there.
Which item, and probably just a very brief high-level summary of the issue, if you could, at this stage. Councillor Henson, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in the payment proposal on the overdue rates section.
Not 19.1. Councillor Henson, will you be suggesting that you'd voluntarily not participate in that item?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct, Mr Mayor, and I guess we addressed that when we come to the confidential section. But yes, I'd be happy to leave the room where the agenda is being discussed.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Henson. That's duly noted. Okay, any other items, councillors? Let's just take a little bit of time to double check that. Yes. Okay, notice. Okay. Right. Okay. Well, we'll move on then. Item 6.1 is a petition requesting Windra Christmas tree remain in the current position. That's at page 6. And Councillor Duff? Sorry,
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think that the recommendation should be that the petition be received and dealt with by council. So I'd like...
Mr CEO, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. In preparation for that question, the reason that one's different is we've actually done this sequence. Well, it's been dealt with out of sequence. There's already been reports to council, and there's a further report in the council agenda. So you can add it in by all means, but when the agenda was put together, there was a discussion because it actually has a rolling council report process, which will be dealt with at the ordinary meeting, and it's already been dealt with at 2 meetings. The receipt of a petition must come to the next ordinary meeting, and it missed the February meeting, and so this recommendation is actually just to tidy up the box that it's formally received, and then the council reports will still go on. So you can add it in, councillor, but it's when I say not relevant, it's actually in that process already.
So, Councillor, would you be happy if we simply said the petition be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer for further consideration by council? Does that tick the box still, Mr CEO? Is immaterial? We can leave as is, or we can put that slight additional change in there, councillor?
I'm happy if we put the additional change in because it's being dealt with later on in the agenda.
Short answer, Mayor. It's without adding it in there. It's already the action has already been that it's being dealt with by council report, so which will continue until it sees its natural conclusion.
So, yeah, thank you, Mr CEO. Okay, well, we have the motion there, moved by you, Councillor Duff. Do we have a seconder? Okay, seconder? Yep, Councillor Froloff. Speakers? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? We'll just seek a show of hands. Councillor Henson? Yes, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 6.2 is a petition, Hamilton Road and Muir Drive gravel sections at 7. It's recommended that the petition be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer to determine the appropriate action and a report be brought back to council. Let's just pop an R in there. Thanks to Mel. Brought back to council. Do we have a mover? Councillor Froloff. Seconded, Councillor Potter. Speakers? Those in favour? Yes, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 6.3, petition curb and channeling, Curtellen Crescent, Kingaroy. That one's at page 27, where the recommendation is that the petition be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer to determine the appropriate action and a report be brought back to Council. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Froloff. Speakers? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 6.4, petition from Wheaton State School. That one's at 35. Whereby the recommendation is that okay, we've got a recommendation there, make sure I've got that right, that the Divisional Councillor and Portfolio Councillor meet with the PCYC and Council staff and a report to be brought back to the July Community Standing Committee. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, second. Councillor Potter. Speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, this one, I think there was a reference that we should get an outside consultant to look at this, but I think the Divisional Councillor, the Portfolio Councillor, meeting with the PCYC and Council staff, we should be able to get a resolution around the Wheatland School wanting a trampoline park. I think that that is the best way forward at this point. So I'm just really keen to have that supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Further speakers? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 7.1, minutes of the council meeting held on the 23rd of February 2022. That's at page 36, where the recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 23rd of February 2022. Oh, sorry, Councillor Froloff.
Yes, sorry, Mayor. Could I leave the chamber? I'd like to address the council on a personal issue. Oh, well, yeah. Leave of the chamber?
Leave of the chamber. Would that mean that we go into close, Mr CEO, or you're happy to do it in the open public meeting?
I'm happy to do it in the
Yeah,
open
certainly, Councillor Froloff. Okay, so we have a mover for that. Second, Councillor Potter. Do we need to vote on that? Yeah, those in favour? Yes, carried unanimously. Got Councillor Hanson. Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Froloff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. As of close of business today, I regret that today I announced my resignation as Division 1 Councillor for the South Burnett Regional Council. I am enormously proud that the residents of Division 1 elected me to represent them in the 2016 election, and even prouder to be re-elected unopposed in the 2020 election. But now, due to changing circumstances, unwarranted personal abuse and safety concerns, I've decided to step down as my role of councillor. Also, I have come to realise that the current leadership is having a detrimental impact on council's cohesiveness, resulting in eroding the joy of serving my division and the South Burnett as a whole, to the point where I can no longer be personally involved. During my time as the Division 1 councillor, I have been represented with some amazing experiences and have really enjoyed my portfolio, as well as the education and knowledge that it brings. I will always cherish my supporters and thank them from the bottom of my heart for their support and respect. I would also like to thank my non-supporters, for you have made me stronger. And it is easy to be the kicker and not the kicked. To the people who believe that they can do a better job, now is your time to put your hand up. I must mostly thank the most amazing South Burnett Regional Council staff, each and every one of you, inside and out. You have all been amazing. A lot of the time the staff are criticised and labelled very unfairly, and if people could see exactly what they do, there might be more respect on that front. For I believe that the staff of the South Burnett Regional Council is the backbone of the council and not the councillors. A massive thank you to everyone. I look forward to continuing my new career, still living and working within the South Burnett, and wish the people that matter all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Mr CEO, in terms of our process now, what do we do now? Over to you.
That's a good question, Mayor. Not every day you start a council meeting like that. It was close of business today, and I would need a copy of that letter. Mayor, there won't be a lot to do today, but we'd bring a report back this next month. The next stage is, I'm just going through my head, we're outside of the appointment, like it's not close enough to an election, so it would effectively be a by-election. Says he, I'm just going straight off the top of my head, but we'll need to get onto the Electoral Commissioner, the Queensland Electoral Commission, and organise and then bring a report back. So if
In terms of today's meeting, do we need to accept? Do we need to vote on accepting Councillor Froloh's statement? No.
No.
Just closing comments and
Yeah,
move on.
And
Okay.
then, as I said, Mayor, I'm just going straight off the top of my head, but I would need a copy of that letter to process.
Yeah.
And from previous history, not that I've had a lot to do with them, the resignation takes effect on the delivery, barring whatever date, but if it's close of business today, so the receipt of the letter today is receipt of the correspondence or resignation by a councillor to the CEO.
Yes.
Is the trigger point. So, we'll process it and I'll get onto the Electoral Commission and then we can chat from there. I'll bring a report back.
Good. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Okay.
We'll just note that we'll bring a report back as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you, Councillor Froeloff. And upon receipt of the letter, so that's now been received. We noted that. Thank you, Councillor Froeloff. I'd like to formally, on behalf of Council, acknowledge and thank Councillor Froeloff for your contribution to the South Burnett region over the last 6 years through your role in Council, and to wish you all the best into the future. Okay, now let's continue on. 7.1, minutes of the previous meeting at 36. It's recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of February 2022 be received and the recommendations therein be adopted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Potter. Speakers, any questions or concerns in relation to the minutes, councillors? No? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Yes, got everybody? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 8.1 is the business outstanding table for the ordinary council meeting. That's at page 59. Thereby, it's recommended that the business outstanding table for the ordinary council meeting be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Henson. Speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did note, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO, there's some of those out that have been dealt with. It's my belief that, for example, the Heisel toilets, that one on page 75, that we continue to clean the Heisel toilets, that one's, I think that should be, it's just being dealt with. I'm just wondering why some of those are still on that list. And I just wanted to ask a couple of questions about the Parks and Gardens master plan, and the few.
Let's deal with the first one, okay. Councillor. Mr. CEO.
Very easy question, Councillor, just time. So you're absolutely correct. There's several. So when we ran the agenda last week and got the report in there, there's several that I went through and I thought, okay, they've been dealt with, actually backed by council, so they need to be clicked off. So it's just a case of people getting a few minutes and just going through and clearing them. So no, good observation, totally correct.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillor Duff, your next question. Thank you.
Thank you, because there's quite a few and I think you could make that list a lot smaller. Just wanted to know what's happening with that Parks and Gardens master plan through you, Mr. Mayor, to General Manager O'May.
Thank you, General Manager.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, no, that was, I think we discussed it last meeting, we were bringing that back to the next standing committee. So that Parks Advisory Committee was going to come back to the standing committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that answer. That will be great. And I'm just wondering what's also happening with the future management of the Tingora and Cloyna halls, because I know that was that it's got to go to I believe it's a court case and there's a whole process. I'm just wondering where that's at.
Thank you, General Manager.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so that is, we are trying to work with the department to outline the best process so we avoid having to actually go to get a court order. So yeah, that won't be a quick process because we are dealing with the land tenure issues there. So we are just trying to work with the department, get advice on the best process as far as the community engagement that we need to do on with the community at large, depending on the tenure. So we are working through that. I might see if a team can give maybe even in there put a bit of a comment about some timeframes and lines, because that one is likely to be a 12-month type process to sort the tenures out. So there's no particular urgent issue that we need to sort it out now, but it is something that we need to deal with. So there's no pending transfers or anything that's pushing. But I might just, if we can give a bit of an update so you've got a better idea. But it will be a time, a fairly lengthy time frame dealing with those land tenure issues.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Further speakers? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Item 9 is notices of motion. We have none for today's meeting, so we'll move on to 10.1, organisational review. That's at 96 Council, where the recommendation is that the South Burnett Regional Council adopt the March 2022 senior staff structure as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Froloff. Speakers? Mr. CEO, do you think you want to add in terms of our process getting to this point? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. No comments limited. So this is just the first phase. There's a lot more work to do as far as the services delivered under each section, and particularly with the concentration on the online or the frontline services. Not online, but online would be part of it going forward. But yeah, certainly the frontline services. We've got one net reduction in managerial positions, so we've pulled back one full position, and happy to take questions, but we'll move once we get that will free up a number of contract staff that we have filling those, and then we'll move to permanent replacements as soon as, and have everything hopefully in place for July.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Can I just acknowledge the work of our CEO and our People and Culture team in leading this process. Also our senior leadership team, our 3 general managers, their managers, and importantly the staff. We've had a really good response to our survey. So to all the staff out there, thanks very much for making the time to provide your thoughts as we've worked through this process with you in consultation with you. It's really much appreciated. The proposed structure is at page 101 for those watching the meeting or for those in the chamber, where we have a Chief Executive Officer. Regional Development sits off to the side under the direction of the Chief Executive Officer. Underneath that, we have 3 General Manager positions, a General Manager of Infrastructure, General Manager of Finance and Corporate, and a General Manager of Livability. Each of those General Manager positions has 3 managerial positions. The General Manager of Infrastructure has a Manager of Infrastructure Planning, Manager Water and Wastewater, and Manager Works. The General Manager Finance and Corporate has a Manager of Finance and Sustainability. We have a Manager Corporate Governance and Strategy, and a Manager ICT and Fleet. General Manager of Livability, we have a Manager of Environment and Planning, a Manager of Community and Lifestyle, and a Manager of Facilities and Parks. And of course we have, continuing on, our Manager of People and Culture, who works to the office of the CEO. And can I say that this proposed new structure is a reflection, is part of a process we've gone through where the council has developed a corporate plan. The corporate plan has been adopted, and as a result of that, structure follows strategy, as our CEO often guides us. So this is the structure following the strategy. There is some changes there which reflect the direction of council in the corporate plan. So it's an important step forward for our council. And once again, thank you, councillors, thank you, Mr. CEO, and your wonderful team for the work in getting us to this point. So we have that there. Does anyone else wish to add anything further? Councillor Henshin, other councillors, before we go to the vote?
I'm good, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Henshin. Okay, well, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Council, next item is 10.2, monthly financial information at page 101, where it's recommended that the monthly financial report, including capital works and works for Queensland, as of 28 February 2022, be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Froloff. Speakers? No, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.3, adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Code of Competitive Neutrality Complaints Policy, Statutory 006. It's at 146. Recommendation is that the South Burnett Regional Council Code of Competitive Neutrality Complaints Policy, Statutory 006, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Yes, Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Henson. Speakers? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.4, adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Anti-Discrimination and Equal Employment Opportunity Policy, Statutory 037 at 151, whereby it's recommended that the South Burnett Regional Council Anti-Discrimination and Equal Employment Opportunity Policy, Statutory 037, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Yes, Councillor Froloff, seconded, Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Froloff. Speakers? No, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.5, adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Arts, Culture and Heritage Policy, Strategic 009. That's at 156, where it's recommended that the South Burnett Regional Council Arts, Culture and Heritage Policy, Strategic 009, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter. Would be unfair to go to anyone else. Seconded Councillor Henson. Thank you, councillors. Speakers, Councillor Potter, you're happy to proceed? Okay, yeah, we'll proceed. Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Yes, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Can I just say we've had 3 policies there adopted by Council today. Manager Corporate, thank you very much for the work that you put in constantly updating, fine-tuning our policies across Council. We have a plethora of policies, don't we, which underpins the operations of Council. So thanks very much to the work that you do and Mr CEO in providing oversight and guiding us through that process. It's really appreciated. And great to see that we've now got the Arts, Culture and Heritage Policy bedded in. It's a historic day, as I've said before. We've now got that locked in. So thanks to everyone that's been involved in that process, under Councillor Potter's leadership, with General Manager O'May, his team, and also, importantly, members of the community who've made a great contribution to that. To those out there in the arts community, thanks for everything you do, and thanks for your involvement in this process and your contribution to developing this policy, which is a really important step forward for our region. 10.6 is the Windra Christmas tree now. Moving on to that at 161. And the recommendation is that the consultation period to review the designs, and Councillor Duff, you've got your light on.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I want to move an alternate recommendation. Is that an alternate motion? Is that?
Yes, you're entitled to do so in relation to the matter.
So I want to move that the Windra Christmas tree remain where it is in the roundabout.
Mr CEO, am I able to accept that motion in terms of our standing orders? Yes. Okay. Well, first of all, do we have a seconder for that? Anyone seconding? Councillor Froloff has seconded. Okay. Councillor Duff, please speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The reason that I'm keen to see this remain in the roundabout is because when we went out to consultation, there was no question about the Christmas tree. We went through that process with the deputations, and the council had previously made a decision to have the Christmas tree there. The committee has accepted that. That's where it goes. It was put through the TAC in the first place. The police, and I followed up again as was presented at the standing committee, that Senior Sergeant Brett Everest said there's no issue with the police having it there. There's no issue with main roads because we went through that whole process. I believe that taking it back out to the community is just going to cause all sorts of angst again when it is not necessary. The community have accepted that. They believe that it was to stay there, and we're just going to cause unnecessary concern in the community about some against and some for, like we went through previously. And I just think it's not necessary, and we've been down that track, and the Christmas tree should remain where it currently is in that roundabout.
Councillor Fradoff.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let you know that we had a meeting yesterday with a TAC meeting, and Main Roads were here. Council James Darcy, Manager James Darcy, will be writing a letter because they've asked for a letter to be sent to them, and they will be soon sending back a letter about the Christmas tree.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to take our mind back a couple of years when we actually had a petition from the Windra community to have the Christmas tree in the park area. And I really don't think so. You're saying that one group is more important than the other group, and one group should be listened to, because that's exactly what I'm hearing, Councillor Duff. So I personally believe we need to ask the community once and for all, and then we can put it to bed. We need that next lot of community consultation, and I will be there with bells on to ask that question. And if then it comes back that they want it in the roundabout, if we're allowed to, then that's great. I don't have an issue with that, but I would like to go to the community and get a majority consensus as to where they want it, because this is their town, this is their Christmas tree. We should be asking their opinion, all of their opinions. Thank you.
Can I just clarify for Council? Councillor Potter is correct. There was a petition received by the community of Windra, I think dated back, if I could be correct, stand corrected, 2018, which was handed to me by a member of the community, and I passed it on to Mr. CEO a few months ago. A copy of that, another copy of that, asking for the Christmas tree to be relocated to Coronation Park. And then more recently, we've had this latest petition asking for it to stay in the roundabout. So I just want to clarify for the community, there is two petitions. Councillor Potter is correct in saying that. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear that that is in fact correct. Councillor Henson, it's hard for you to put your light on there, so maybe we need something you can just shine. But over to you, Councillor Henson. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Councillor Duff, I find it amazing. Like, we talk about open, transparent council and community consultation. It flies in the face of the people. No, there may not have been a question on that questionnaire into the Christmas tree, but it was stated, and it was common knowledge, to replace that roundabout. That Christmas tree had to come down. Now, the people wrote on that petition and to the councillors that were there with me for the 6 consultation days that we had in Windra, they wrote their concerns and their opinions on those feedback forms as well. Now, there was very similar amount of people stated that they would like it positioned in Coronation Park, and I can fully appreciate the people that have signed the petition to want it in the roundabout. So that is not my decision, that is the decision of the people. But I think it's fair dinkum, throw an egg in the face of those people that said on those forms that they would like and certainly have it considered to be positioned in Coronation Park. So, you know, I think that's a little bit of an insult to the people those that want it in Coronation Park, and certainly not an insult to those people that want it in the roundabout. But I think in council's policies and to follow through, community consultation now, unfortunately, and I'm not sure, and for the public, that yes, I tested positive to COVID, so I'm at home, and not being able to go to that TAC meeting. And as you said, you've spoken to a police officer in Mergen and no issues there. Fully understand that. Hence, as I said previously at a standing committee, the whole intention of taking it to that TAC meeting was where the SES, the main roads, the police, the ambulance, all were in that room, and anybody that had any issues or implications as to whether that Christmas tree should or shouldn't be there would be seen in a proper meeting, just one of the parts of community consultation. So I'm extremely supportive of the officer's recommendation of bringing this back and having community consultation and bring it back at August. So, yeah, I will accept the decision of the people of Windra. So I look forward to that community consultation. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Duff, right of reply before we go to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I just think that there's a perception and that the Christmas tree, I've heard people say that they want, if it was in Coronation Park, that they could get their photos underneath the Christmas tree with children. But the Christmas tree in Mergen has got, and we'll have to have one, a barricade fence around it in Queen Elizabeth Park, and no one is able to get their photo underneath the Christmas tree. So if we do go out to consultation, all of those things need to be considered, because there's all these perceptions that are not, to my mind, not correct. Because if you have a look at the Christmas tree in Mergen, it doesn't tick the boxes as far as that perception that kids are going to be able to get close to that tree and enjoy photographs underneath the tree. There'll be just a big fence around it. So if we do, so yeah, I can see I haven't got the support in the chamber, but my concern is that we had the petitions, we did have a petition for, we had a petition against, and we made a decision. So now we're going to go out and there'll be division again in the community about it, but we went through that process. It's not about not giving the people the say. They've already had the say, and the ultimate decision of council was to put it there. So we're just going back and dividing the community again over the Christmas tree. When we had the TAC accepted it, the people accepted it, given, yes, both sides. We had petitions for and we had petitions against. Now we're going down the same path. My concern is that we're going to divide the community over the Christmas tree. I'm not about not having open and transparency. I'm about trying to get an outcome that doesn't divide the community of Windra.
Okay, let's go to the vote. Councillor Duff's motion is there. Those in favour? Councillor Duff. Those against? Councillor Potter, Froloff, Otto and Henson. Thank you, Councillor Duff, for bringing that forward. We'll now go back to the original recommendation now of the Standing Committee, where it's recommended that the consultation period to review the designs and consider community feedback for the Windra roundabout following receipt of the Christmas tree petition be extended, and that specific feedback regarding the Christmas tree and upgrade works be brought back to Council at the August Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting. So do we have a mover for such? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Froloff. Speakers, Councillor Potter as the mover. You're comfortable. Any other speakers? Councillor Henson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, it's just a process, and I can appreciate, Councillor Duff, your opinion. And on the conversation I can recall with you, you were all in favour at one stage of the tree in the Coronation Park. So, you know, this is not about us. This is about the Windra community. And you talk about division, it's already there. We've got a petition for and a petition against. And if you also recall, several months ago, Council was seriously scrutinised. When I say several months ago, it was prior to Christmas. A gentleman in Windra seriously scrutinised Council and wanted to know the costs and the implications of putting the staff in that roundabout and the time it took. I'm sure you remember that conversation and those emails that went backwards and forwards. So that's just another thing to take into consideration as well. So, yeah, I look forward to this community consultation. And as I said before, I will certainly be supporting whatever the decision is from the Windra residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Henson. So we have a mover and a seconder here. Anyone else wish to speak? I might just put some summarising comments and then come back to Councillor Potter if she wants to wrap up. But yeah, look, I'm supportive of this because community consultation is extremely important. We must get it right. My only concern is, and I'm going to seek Councillor Potter and Councillor Froloff's thoughts here, I just think August is too late. I know we have to go back to the community. I certainly acknowledge what Councillor Duff's saying, that it's potentially going to cause more division. We're going to have two camps there arguing it out in the main street of Windra as to whether the Christmas tree gets moved or not. I really do hope that we can just keep that under control and keep this a respectful conversation and debate in the community that's based on the facts and try and keep emotion out of it. So we'll have to manage that carefully. But it is an emotional issue. I do know that Councillor Duff has been approached by people in Windra, so she's making representation on their behalf. So I just want to acknowledge that. But I suppose, to get back to the point, I just I'm just concerned, Councillor Potter, that if we don't get the report back until August, are we going to have the Christmas tree at some location ready for Christmas with the works that have to be done on the roundabout or otherwise? So I would prefer to see that June. It's only, where are we now? We're late March, aren't we? So if that came back to council, that would be early June. That would give us April, May. That'd give us about 2 months, wouldn't it? A bit over around 2 months to do the community consultation. I'm just worried about what pressure we're going to put our staff under to get the project done before Christmas otherwise. What are your thoughts, Councillor Potter?
Look, I think if we need to do it, if you would like it done by June, then I think it's actually the councillors that need to go out there and do that consultation. It's literally just, we can go to the markets and everything like that. And I think that this is something that councillors can do, and because we don't want to put the staff under any more pressure, because this is budget time and they're all going to be flat out. So I think, personally believe if you want to change it, that's fine. But if we do, I don't think we should be expecting any staff member to be going and doing that consultation with the councillors.
On that basis, Councillor, would you be in favour of just changing the motion so that whereby it is recognised in the motion that the intent is here for councillors to undertake the community consultation? Because I'm hearing you, our staff have got budget cycle. They've got a lot of projects they're working on across a whole different range of funding sources at the moment. And if we're going to drag our staff back out to the community consultation when they're trying to plan and design other projects, we could be just making their life, we could be just, adversely impacting on the productivity of our planning and design team. So would you be happy if we were to say that the consultation to review the designs and consider community feedback be extended, and specific feedback regarding the Christmas tree be gathered by councillors and brought back to council at the August? Would you be happy with that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, but
Take out the words upgrade works. I don't want to put our design team through the process of redesigning a whole new roundabout with a Christmas tree concept in the roundabout, and then the outcome is that we decide to move it to Coronation Park. I'd rather we got the message from the community first, and then we can then pass that on through council to the design team. Otherwise, it just feels like we're chasing our tail on this one. What do you think?
yes, no, look, I'm very much okay with that. I just, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO, I just wouldn't mind help wording the questionnaire that we send out. Thank you, from council staff. If they could just help us with that one, that would be much appreciated.
CEO, in terms of your thoughts, councillors leading that consultation process and doing that, I suppose, somewhat independently of the team, not taking a design out, just going out and asking the community which would be their preferred option and bringing back that to the June meeting. Any operational issues from your point of view with that?
The only thing, if we're going to swap out August infrastructure, did you want to just go, Mayor, straight to the June ordinary meeting? Because if it goes to the infrastructure committee, it's still going to have to go to the June ordinary. So if we just target the June ordinary, that'll give us a couple extra weeks and council can make a decision.
Yeah, I think that's a really good recommendation, isn't it? That gives us an extra 2 weeks. Yeah, thanks, Mr. CEO. Are you happy with that, Councillor Potter? So councillors will do the consultation and bring feedback back to the June ordinary meeting of council for a decision to be made at that point in time, and then our design team can then go away and work on that. Councillor Froloff, as the seconder, are you comfortable with that? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so that's the motion that we've now changed it to. General Manager Brennan, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Otto. Listening to Council's strategy in relationship to that places the consultation process first to ask that direct question. So in response to Councillor Potter's request, that is a relatively small request for us to assist you in that. And as we have had previous engagement plans, it's a relatively simple and quick process for James's team to assist the councillors in that process. As the Mayor correctly pointed out, it's the drawing up of alternatives and the drafting, which we have limited resources for at the moment, that is the big task. So by doing it in this order, it is relatively a small task to assist council with the organisation, with the preparation of flyers, with the collation of the information, with James's team. And I can't see him in my peripheral vision, so I can't tell if he's going to throw something. But I would think that it's most appropriate, CEO, that we would support you as normal, because that's a relatively minor task compared to the significant task of drawing up alternatives and working out the ramifications should council's position change on designs.
Thank you very much, General Manager. So that perhaps if we coordinate this through the Office of the CEO so that we can pull together the councillor involvement and the appropriate staff involvement based on what resources you have available, General Manager, at that time. If we do it through your Office of the CEO, that way we get high-level coordination of that. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Further speakers before we go to the vote? Councillor Potter, anything to conclude? No? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, Councillor Potter.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, just before we go to the vote.
Oh no, we're going to the vote, Councillor Henson. Sorry, you've missed the vote. We're going to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, Councillor Potter, Froeloff, Otto and Henson. Those against? Councillor Duff. Motion has been carried 4 votes to 1. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Henson. A matter not related to this. Was there another separate matter?
No, Mr Mayor, that's perfectly all right. I'll start my speaker. Being out west where I am, there must be some time delay, so I'll jump in 10 or 15 seconds early in future.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now just over to 10.7, advocacy to government on COVID mandates relating to shows. That's at 162. Now, from the committee meeting, it's recommended that South Bennett Regional Council write to the Deputy Premier, the Chief Health Officer and the Queensland Local Government Association and advocate on the following points raised by the Show Society. That show societies and showgrounds be treated as equal to all other events and activities that are conducted on a showgrounds. No differentiation based on activity. Failing this, similar recognition whereby a cap is established, for example, stadiums where there is a cap under which there are no requirements, to be given the consideration of consultation with Queensland Health in the development of the directives that so significantly impact show societies. And that a clear and factually account of why showgrounds are being singled out from other industries like sporting activities, markets and stadiums. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, thank you. Second, Councillor Potter. Councillor Duff, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, this is a very important issue for Queensland shows. We had the issue with at Proston Show that we had to have a security guard. Luckily, we were able to get one who did it on a voluntary basis, but it has had the potential to cost a huge amount of money for the Show Society. It also caused a lot of angst in the community when we had to say that you couldn't come unless you were double vaxxed, and yet 2 weeks later we've only just had the Proston Camp Draft on the same grounds, and lots and lots of people but able to just go in without having to be double vaxxed or policed at the gate. It's causing a lot of issues for all shows. I was on a phone link up with a lot of other mayors and councillors who were very, very concerned about the risk to their future shows with having to have these mandates, and yeah, just really keen to see some consistency in the government legislation around having shows so that you could just come in the same as you can at other sporting events on those same facilities. So keen to see this one pushed. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I know I mentioned this the other day, but whether this is the state government that's gone against their word or the Chief Health Officer, I really don't know. But this is something I feel strongly about, because I still do not understand how you can have 4,999 people in a sporting stadium and not have 300 people in a showground, which is mostly open air. It just defies everything, because, and as I said, they've gone against their word. So they are killing country shows. They are killing communities with this particular one.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Henson. Sorry, I think I'll go to you each time now to make sure I don't miss you. Councillor Henson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank
yeah,
you.
totally agree with Councillor Potter. There's a lot of questions and a lot of answers to be questioned about and answered, that's for sure. And as stated, and can feel for the Proston Show Society, I mean, that's right, there seems to be conflicting views. And that's across the whole of the country, not just in the South Burnett. So, yeah, they just got to seriously have a look at that. Thank you.
Okay, anything further? Further speakers? No. Shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.8 is Anzac Day 2022. That's at 164. This was presented at the recent committee meeting, and the committee resolution was that the committee recommends to council that the following council representatives attend the respective ceremonies and carry out responsibilities as required on behalf of council, as per the table. I won't read the whole table, but we've got all councillors going across the region to many events, ceremonies, both dawn services, memorial services, attending war graves at every locality across the South Burnett, as shown in the table there on pages 164 and 165. So we'll seek a mover for that. Councillor Froloff, thank you. And a seconder. Sorry, Councillor Froloff, yes.
Sorry, Mayor, that I won't be a councillor during Anzac Day. I'll be at all the council, all the Anzac Days for Nanango myself, but I'd like to put forward that if CEO Mark Pitt would take my place representing South Burnett Regional Council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Froloff. Mr. CEO, would you be comfortable doing that in Nanango? And where else did we have Ros going? I think, yeah, there was those three in Nanango. Thank you.
I would, Mayor, and we were going to head over to the Nanango main service just as average punters any which way. So we went last year as well, and it was a great service. So yeah, no, be honoured to, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. So, Lynelle, we might just change that. We put our CEO in there. That'll be at the Nanango Dawn Service, the Nanango Public Pilgrimage, and the Nanango Memorial Service. If we can just change the recommendation as per the amended table. The amended table, yeah. Thanks, Lynelle. Okay. So we've got that moved by Councillor Froloff. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter, thank you. Any speakers? Councillor Froloff, you happy? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all.
Mayor, just before you move on, there was and we didn't make a recommendation because I was seeking some direction. There was a request from the Kingaroy sub-branch for an extra $500 given costs of catering and their costs. As the report went to the committee meeting, there's substantial in kind the council gives, but we have a $5,000 budget each year for the actual cash donation. So we spend about $3,800 on average. Sometimes that moves a little bit given special circumstances, but it's certainly within jurisdiction to grant the request of, well, it's within financial delegations to pass on the extra $500, but our community and donations policy actually cap out the Anzac Day at $1,000. And speaking with General Manager O'May, it's probably one, for some reason or other, this has sat for a very long time in the office of the CEO, and we've got community grants, and we've folded Anzac Day, Australia Day into community grants. So with the structure changes, it's one of those ones that we can tidy up and put all those festivals together. So I would, if we go over and that was, in considering the request, we would be outside policy, so that would be outside my jurisdiction or delegation. So, which seems a bit of a strange thing. But anyway, we could do one of two things, just grant this specific individual request, or given we've got the $1,200 is distribute because of Kingaroy sub-branches having extra costs, I'd imagine they're all being hit up. So we've just done a notional spread of how we would send out that extra $1,200, so it was fair across the region, but really just seeking some direction. Do we leave it alone? If we don't want to change anything, well then there's no action required, or does council want to change something?
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Council, in light of the CEO's comments, I've just given thought to that. I'm happy to move a motion that the budget allocation that the distribution of funds for Anzac Day 2022 be as follows, and we can reword this if necessary. If we go to page 167, sorry, and down the bottom we've got that table with the background there, Linnell. So what effectively that does is it gives Kingaroy, Mergen and the Nango an extra $300, and it gives Blackbutt and Wandai an extra $100 each. So that distributes an extra $1,100, which takes us pretty well up to just underneath our $5,000 budget, and provides, I feel, that provides an equitable distribution across our 3 major centres as well as our 2 smaller centres. So if we could just copy that table, Anel, as part of my motion. Yeah, thank you. And that'll just get that up for discussion by council. So just to get it up for discussion, I'll move that motion that the distribution of funds for Anzac Day 2022 be as follows. Now, this will be outside policy, which limits it to $1,000, but by resolution of council today, Mr. CEO, that can be given effect to, yeah? Okay, so I'd now move that. Do we have a seconder? Yep, Councillor Potter. So I'll quickly speak to that. I think that it's not a recommendation from the CEO, but it's put there for council to discuss, and I'd like to see that we do distribute that equitably across our 3 major centres and give a little bit extra to Blackbutt and Wandai. I know that, yes, Kingaroy has a significant Anzac Day ceremony, but so does Nanango. Theirs is quite significant, and so does Mergen. So I think, in my view, it would be fair to distribute that equitably across those 3 larger ceremonies, and also to provide a little bit extra support to Blackbutt and Wandai. So I'll just put that out there. So, fellow speakers, Councillor Henson, I'd go to you first. Your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. No, that's a great idea. I mean, Anzac Day is a special noted day in Australia, so I don't have a problem with that. And of course, with the rising costs, I think that's just a given. And yeah, hopefully, everybody that keeps them sustainable to be able to run their day as they normally do. So yeah, good idea. Great, fully supportive.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Further speakers? Other councillors? No, everyone seems comfortable with that. So let's go. I'll wrap up with that, conclude, and go to the vote. Those in favour? Carry unanimously. Thank you all. Mr. CEO, thanks sincerely for bringing that forward today too. That's something we hadn't thought about, so thanks for getting that so we could deal with it today. Anzac Day is going to be here very, very soon. Okay, now we're on to 11.1, which is the 21-22 Black Spot Program funding, Glendon and Markwell Street intersection roundabout at page 168, where it's recommended that council adopt the design for construction of the Glendon Markwell Street intersection roundabout. Do we have a mover? Yep, Councillor Froeloff, seconded. Councillor Henson. Councillor Froeloff, did you want to add any opening comments? No, happy with that. Any speakers? Okay, if I might just go straight across to our planning and design manager, Manager Darcy, supported by General Manager Meehan, to provide us with an overview of the design for the much awaited new roundabout at the corner of Glendon and Markwell Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is the subject of a black spot nomination that Council put forward for 21-22, and has been an ongoing item that the residents of Kingaroy and the South Burnett are aware of, with it being a somewhat a roundabout that can be improved upon. And we've got a few legacy infrastructure items that this project will hope to overcome. So through our consultation that we did with businesses out there, we went around in late February, liaising with them and understanding what some of the impacts are around the operations of that roundabout and how could we improve that. So we looked at the some of the vegetation and the fixed items out there around the drainage as well, because it is quite a flat street, Markwell Street. But what we wanted to do was trying to improve a lot of the approach and departure movements of vehicles that go through there. We also wanted to understand the size of those vehicles and how they actually move through that intersection and where do they want to go. So that was really worthwhile, and it allowed us to learn more around the business operations and some of those business interests that we don't have a full appreciation of. So as a result, we've gone about modifying some of the curb around there and looking to improve some of the pedestrian movements across there and looking to increase that central diameter of that roundabout and looking to try and minimise our disruption of tree removal on the footpath. However, we did get strong feedback around the Torrelliana trees that occupy Markwell Street as well, around what the leaves and branches and the nuts of those trees do to vehicles, as well as the just the way the roads operate in that area. So looking to improve those movements of pedestrians and bringing them back away from the intersection itself, because currently they concentrate their movements into the middle, which is undesirable, and also looking to try and reduce the speed but improve what we call deflection, which is around trying to reduce the speed through the roundabout, because at present the current geometry of that roundabout just doesn't quite get those outcomes, and we're fairly confident that this project will overcome those known issues at this point in time. Through you, Mr Mayor, happy to take any further questions around it.
Thank you for a presentation, Manager. Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks for the work you've done in getting us to this point. I know the people of Kingaroy and the South Bend are very keen to see that cleaned up. It's a very busy intersection through there. Councillors, do you have any questions for our General Manager or Manager? No? Councillor Henshin, any comments or questions?
No, I'm good, thanks, Mr Mayor. Great project. I'm sure the residents and the people around that will be extremely appreciative when that gets completed. Yeah, good work, guys.
So my only question before we go to the vote on this one, managers, would be approximate time frame under the Black Hawks funding to completion. Just look a rough estimate as to when we might see the works commence and finish. Yeah, thanks.
Through you, Mr Mayor. At this stage, we're probably thinking about a May start. It will be, more than likely, it will be the KTP team coming down at the same time to do that. It's actually not a long project to build, so we're looking to get through that in quite quick time. Obviously, it's close to the shopping centre, so we want to move through there fairly quickly. We'll be moving through that program meeting. We had a preliminary look at it yesterday, but I think at this stage, Mr Mayor, it'll probably be around May. It'll be definitely after Easter before we start, so we don't impact on that trade. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much, General Manager. So, community, expect to see the works happening sometime around May on that corner. There'll be a bit of disruption, of course, as there always is. There has to be with construction works, but I'm sure our team will do a great job, and we'll get into it as they've been doing with the KTP and get the job done as quickly and as well as they can with the time available. So, Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I just want to say thanks to James and Stacey, because they sort of spent quite a bit of time with Councillor Shoemaker and myself talking to all the different businesses around the area. And even while we were talking there, we saw so many near misses. We saw people walking diagonally across the roundabout, and this will just make it a safer place for all. I'm sure most of us have been at that roundabout at times and nearly been taken out by another vehicle, because people just don't tend to look. They just assume it's okay and just drive straight through. So, look, I'm really looking forward to this one being completed. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor. Yeah, just like to reiterate, thanks very much to Councillors Potter and Shoemaker as our local councillors for working with the project team and yourself, Manager Darcy, and in that very important community consultation too. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carry unanimously. Thank you all. The next item is 11.2, Kingaroy Transformation Project Lantern Designs. That's at 171, where it's recommended that Council adopt the design of the Kingaroy Transformation Project lanterns in principle as per the attachment in the report. Do we have a mover? Yep. Councillor Potter, a seconder. Councillor Henshin there. Okay. Speakers? General Manager, would you mind giving us an overview as to the designs? Maybe we'll go there first. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you.
Project Manager, thank you.
That's all right. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good morning, Council. I've just got my learned colleague here, Cody, who's, I'll acknowledge, has done most of the work on the lanterns. As per our report there, what we've done with the lanterns for the KTP is we've used a connection to the welcome signs that are on the existing signs. to make that image either be depicted in there or some sort of connection to it, such as the Cumbia, you've got the stone fruit off and obviously that sign has a stone fruit tree in it, in their signs. The only one that we had difficulty with was the Nanango sign, and we actually met with Councillor Froloff, or James and Cody did last week, to present an alternative sign. That sign actually comes from the main board that's in the Nanango streetscape, which has the shovel and the pick, along with acknowledges the merging of the rivers in that area. So we've got our landscape architect to propose an alternative design for there. I would encourage council to have a good look at the meanings behind some of these signs. It's actually quite refreshing to see some of the connections that are there, particularly when you're looking at Indigenous heritage, particularly in connection to the words and some of the reasons for why those signs are there. But other than that, Mr. Mayor, I would just acknowledge too that the purpose of the report is to adopt those signs in principle. When they go to manufacture, there may be a slight change to the image depending on the thickness of the lines, depending on the weight of the steel. So by that I mean is that if you look at the maiden one, I just saw that one there before, if the manufacturer says that is too fine, we'll increase the size of the bricks in the maiden well, in the actual well itself. So, but just wanted to acknowledge that. It is made out of 6mm steel, I think, Cody. So it does, the finer the cut, obviously that creates a few weight issues for us because they are actually quite heavy. But we'll be looking through that. So, but generally we're looking to mirror those images. And again, I just acknowledge Cody and the design team in behind him for getting these together. It was actually quite tricky to find an image that you can actually manufacture in steel. I think they're laser cut, Cody, as opposed to being milled. So we look forward to getting these out and on the ground shortly. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that's our report for the land. So we think they'll be fantastic.
Thank you very much, Project Manager. Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a question to Manager Meehan. With some of these images, would it be possible to incorporate, and I'm just reading through like the Cumbia / Geelong ones, where Geelong states the entry sign depicts beef cattle and trucking, which links to the industry in this area. Could it be possibly on our towns that we regard as our entry points to the South Burnett, perhaps have something that links that to be the gateway, like for argument's sake, a gateway, an image of a gateway?
Through Mr. Mayor.
That out there?
No, I acknowledge the councillor's question. Just to draw council's attention there too, if you go to the first one, which is on Blackbutt, we have included the QR codes on them. So we'll be able to, I think it'd be fair to say society is quite adept at using QR codes post-COVID. Our intention at that stage is to have a slot there available where council can put a QR code there so people can go and scan, and they'll be able to go to any tourism, anything that we want to. For example, if you want to talk more about the industry in Geelong, or if you do tourism videos or any major events that come up within the South Burnett, we'll be able to link that back through a website. If we were to change the lanterns now, councillor, that would be a significant redesign and delay for the project for us to go back and recut those designs. So probably where we were coming from is that you can use the QR code to display any information you want about the South Burnett via those, which will probably keep it fairly consistent with our design.
Yeah, thanks, Manager Meehan. Totally understand that, and I do recall that conversation some time ago in relation to the codes. So, yeah, great idea, and take that on board. But, yeah, excellent work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Project Manager. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to know, have you already, so they've already been cut and designed, those lands, and I just wanted to get an idea of what the cost is going to be, because it's not in the actual report. It just says it's within budget, but I'm just wondering, how much are the lands going to cost?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the lands haven't been cut yet. we haven't, this is only the design for them, so we haven't been to market. We wouldn't be able to give that cost in an open meeting, councillor, as it would go to procurement, so they'll be called for pricing. Yep. But they're within the KTP budget.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to check because I'm just concerned that we might get some pushback when we put, you know, lanterns in the streets when we've got so many other issues around that people are going to say that, you know, why are we spending money in this? But was that already part of the project, and was it already part of the application process, and that it's too late to change, you know, that concept altogether, or is it an option to actually not do the lanterns and use the money for something else? Because I know I'm going to be asked that by the community, so I'm just asking you.
Sure. Through Mr. Mayor, is a signature design of the original project. So that sub-infrastructure has already been installed, ready for the lanterns to be installed. So it was a signature design that council adopted in its principle to put these lanterns in.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to be able to answer the community because I'm just thinking that with the state of our roads and the state of our, you know, the fact we've lost 500,000, that people might say it's a nice to have but not a need to have. But what you're saying is it's already the plates are there ready for those lanterns to go in. So the horse is already bolted with regards to that.
Sorry, I'm flashing, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, we've got that. We've installed the sub infrastructure for these, so those conduits are there, running for the lanterns to be installed now. Yeah.
True, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so that's fine. So it's part of the whole project and it's part of the budget. So I just want to be able to answer the community concerns when they say, why aren't we spending that money on potholes? So just on the Proston one, you've actually got that the pastoral run name, which is corrupt. The wording is incorrect there, which is a corruption from the Indigenous word for. It's actually, I think it's the bottle tree, not the Kurrajong tree, because I noticed in the design you've actually got bottle trees, but you've put in the description a Kurrajong tree, because on the Proston welcome signs they're actually bottle trees.
Yeah, we might just take that on board if we could. Thanks, GM. And I'm just, unless you've got the answer straight away.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to amend that to the bottle tree. The design we've used is actually the one off the. So if I've got the wording wrong with that, council, I'm happy to amend that.
Just change that to bottle tree. Yeah, thanks.
That's no problem at all.
Thanks, Manager. Yes, thank you, Councillor Duff. We've got to wrap this one up. Let's go to Councillor Potter for concluding comments. Thank you, Councillor
Mr.
Potter.
Mayor. Look, I know Cody's put in a lot of time and effort and he's done a lot of study. He's learned a lot about the area now, that even things that I didn't know. So thank you for that, Cody. But look, I think this is fantastic, and I think with the QR codes on these, so let's say the Proston community's got their upcoming show, that can be downloaded to the QR code on the site, and so whenever anyone scans anything on these QR codes, it goes straight to that town and what is happening and all the exciting things that are going on. So this isn't just something that looks great, it actually has a really great objective too for the whole of the community. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. That concludes the debate. Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Project Manager. We have waiting in the foyer some lovely people who are here on a very special occasion to receive their Australian citizenship certificates as part of our ceremony. So I'll now move that we adjourn the meeting for morning tea. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Henson, I knew you'd be quick off the mark. Thanks for that. You always are. He's got his head stuck up in the air, ready to go. Those in favour? Carry unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, welcome back. I'll now move that we resume the meeting. Do we have a seconder? Yep, Councillor Duff, thank you. Those in favour? Carry unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, now we are up to, on the agenda, item 11.3, which was the Blackbutt CBD redevelopment. It's at page 196, where from the Standing Committee it has been recommended that Coulson Street within the 60-kilometre zone be recognised and signed as Roy Emerson Way. Do we have a mover? Yep, Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Henson. Speakers? I might just clarify this for the community or anyone that's tuned in. I'd like to acknowledge the work that the community and Councillor Jones have done in this space with the support of General Manager Meehan over a long period of time to seek approval from the Queensland Government to have Roy S. Emerson Way established, or the naming on the road through Blackbutt as Roy Emerson Way. Of course, in acknowledgement of Roy Emerson, one of Australia's greatest, not just tennis stars, but sports stars, who spent much of his childhood living and learning the craft of tennis in Blackbutt and at Nakoo. And we had meetings with the departmental heads and the minister where they recommended that we had that they were quite comfortable, main roads, with us naming the 60-kilometre zone section through the main street of Blackbutt, Council Street, as Roy Emerson Way. Now, it would be recognised and signed as Roy Emerson Way under this resolution. We will obviously need to work with DTMR in relation to the signage approval, General Manager, but it obviously would not be renamed as such. It will still be Colston Street, still recognised as Colston Street for all other purposes, but there will be obviously that the appropriate signage recognising it as Roy Emerson Way. So, okay, so with that, we've got that there. Any further speakers? Otherwise, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Yes, got Councillor Henson. Thank you all. Okay, 11.4, pothole repair methodology at 197. Again, this has been discussed at length at the Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting, where it's been recommended that by the committee that as part of the upcoming 22-23 budget deliberations, a report be brought to the Capital Expenditure Budget Committee meeting on the purchase of an additional Flowcon machine and additional Paveline machine. That a report be brought to the Infrastructure Operating Expenditure Budget Committee outlining the budget required to resource an additional Flowcon machine and Paveline machine with the staff and physical resources required to establish an extra pothole repair crew and align the program work so that the Flowcon and Paveline teams work in conjunction. Now, Councillor Duff, you've got your light on. Are you wanting to move, or have you got
Thank
comment?
you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move an alternative recommendation. I just think due to the current economic climate that we're in, that we won't be able to afford those extra machines, so I wanted to move an alternate motion.
Yes, please proceed.
That a report be brought back to the Infrastructure Standing Committee in April with a plan to restructure the pothole repair program with an alignment of the Flowcon and Paveline team operations.
Hey, now we'll need to get a seconder and then we can have a discussion on this, a debate. Seconder, Councillor Potter, thank you. Councillor Duff, would you please speak to your motion? Thank
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think given the economic circumstances, it would be very difficult for us to be able to fund an additional Flowcon machine and additional Paveline machine. So I think that the general consensus was around the room is that when the staff go out and they are fixing big potholes and not small ones because of the different types of machine that they need to do different potholes, that we would like to have them aligned so that when they go out, that they go in unison so that the potholes, both big and small, are being fixed at the same time in the interest of efficiency and also just for the perception of the public and our council reputation that be a way forward around the issue with the potholes discussion that we've been having. And yeah, just in a perfect world, love to be able to afford the extra machines, but simply think we won't be able to afford that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, councillor. So this motion that's now in front of council effectively picks up the final item from the committee's recommendation, which talked about programming works so that the Flowcon and Paveline teams could work where possible in conjunction. So it's just picking up that final item, just to clarify for the community. Okay, further speakers. Mr. CEO.
Mr. Mayor, if I can make a suggestion, it's certainly just bluntly, we have no hope of getting that report to the Infrastructure Standing Committee. Could we just insert exec finance, because we can bring it in under the HR? So it'll allow us to, I shouldn't say no hope, we can bring you a report, but it'll be just so undercooked. So if we can just push it out those couple of weeks, we can bring you back something a little bit more substantive.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. You happy with that, Councillor Duff?
Yes, Mr Mayor, happy with that.
Councillor Potter? Yeah, push it forward to exec finance on the 3rd week of April. Okay, yeah, thank you. General Manager Brennan, yeah, keen to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Otto. If I could just probably add a few observations to the CEOs, which you most correctly pointed out, and I do have my colleague, Manager Kevin, here with me for specifics, but I think we're under no confusion in relationship to Council's intent in trying to meet ratepayers' expectation that they see pavement works are done on a road in total, despite their type. And I'm just as sure that Council do understand that our Paveline machines and our Flowcon machines do different jobs, as has been explained before. I think everyone is on the same page there. So it goes without saying that we will attempt to meet those objectives. Of course, we have mismatched capability. We have 2 Paveline machines and 1 Flowcon. So that won't, we will do all of those, make all of those observations when we do report. I, like the CEO, I'm quite concerned about current timeframes in relationship to budget preparations. We are coming back with our operational budget on in a workshop on the 4th of next month. And of course, because of that timeframe, significant effort has already been undertaken in relation to the recommendation of the Standing Committee, because we would not have had time to start it now and wait for the Council's decision. So we actually have prepared a lot of the information in relationship to the operational costs of additional machines, which is able to be presented anyway as in our discussion of service levels, because at our workshop and then subsequently at our budget meeting, which is on the 8th of April, we will be presenting information to Council based on both asset management principles and service levels. So it fits in nicely with the recommendation made at Infrastructure Standing anyway. To change now, we will do our best in relationship to that. The CEO's right. We close our papers for Infrastructure Standing this week for April. So they are largely complete now. But thank you for allowing me to make those comments.
Thank you, General Manager. Further speakers? Okay, anything to wrap up, Councillor Duff? Conclude the debate. Otherwise, we'll go to the vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Henson. Councillor Henson, sorry, I should have been looking at the screen. Over to you. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I'm a little astounded, Councillor Duff, and only you're the one that moved this motion some weeks ago about the purchase of a Flowcon machine and a Paveline machine, and Councillor Jones, as you remember, welcomed the idea with open arms, knowing full well that to try and fit that into our budgetary requirements was going to be something like a very large 6 or 7 figure sum. Yeah, of course, and also if we go back 12 months, I'm pretty sure the Chamber would remember a conversation had with General Meehan in relation to the potholes, that I suggested there's no road in the South Burnett that only has 50 mil potholes or only has over 50 mil potholes. And the suggestion was, in some circumstances, it would be great to be able to work those machines in conjunction, knowing full well that's not possible at some times with the demand on some roads and the demand on some of those machines. And it'd be just probably take note that, you know, perhaps some of the decisions made in this chamber want a little bit more thought going into them, in the fact that we're council trying to save money, and the decisions we make, those are the ones for the ratepayers. So, yeah, I can fully understand that, that the purchase of these machines within our budgetary talks and for next year would be a massive, and I welcome the report, or we welcome the recommendation that we look at the pothole methodology. So yeah, that'll be a good work for our managers, and I'm sure they'll come back to us with some deliberation as to the improvements that can be made in that section. So thank you.
Right, further speakers? Okay. If not, we'll wrap up, go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Moving on to 11.5, it's an application for permanent road closure of Mccanty Road, Windra, which adjoins lot 49 MZ 555 and lot 202 on SB 251979. It is at 198. The matter has been considered at a standing committee meeting, and as a result of that, the committee has recommended to council that council advise the applicant and the Department of Natural Resources and Mines that it objects. I'm just looking at that now. I think am I missing? Oh no, I'm missing a page. What did I say? Yeah, I'll read it off the resolution from the committee, perhaps, Mr. CEO. That A, it objects. That council objects to the application to the permanent road closure of Mccanty Road, Windra, which adjoins lot 49 MZ 555 and lot 202 on SP 251979, shown as in attachment 1. The reasons for this objection are as follows. The long-term usage of the sections of road reserve is unknown. The closure may affect any future interconnection of roads, any necessary future infrastructure, and any potential new development in the area. Should the Department of Natural Resources and Mines approve the proposed permanent road closure, that there be no cost to council associated with the road closure, delegates authority under Section 257 of the Local Government Act 2009 to the Chief Executive Officer or their delegate to finalise any and all matters associated with the application, and executes as road manager Form Part C statement in relation to an application under the Land Act 1994 over state land for the proposed permanent road closure. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff. Seconder? Councillor Henson. Thank you. Speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that the recommendation is self-explanatory and, yeah, absolutely supportive of it.
Thank you. Further speakers? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 11.6, Kratzmann's Road, Floodway at Windra, page 201, where again this has been discussed at a standing committee meeting, where the committee has recommended to council that council investigate the purchase of one set of solar-powered portable traffic lights and liaise with the proponents of the piggery development at 592 Morgans Road, Windra, regarding the operational costs of portable traffic lights and associated signage until completion of improvement works to the floodway on Kratzmann's Road, Windra. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Henson. Speakers, Councillor Potter, Councillor Duff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was something that I'd put forward because I had, we all met at Windra around because there was concerns from the community of the increased traffic and the fact that the piggery developer has had an extension because of COVID, and they're concerned about the safety on that particular crossing. So that's where this has come from. So I'm very supportive that we have those discussions with the developer to try and get a safety outcome for the community up until that development is of the upgrade of the Kratzmann's Road is achieved through that process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Further speakers? No. Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, as discussed, and thank you, Councillor Duff. It's also forwarding on from that, I think, just so the public are aware, and investigate the purchase, and in a standing committee we'd all be well aware of the costs of, you know, the higher fees, and council, I believe we do have a couple of sets of those, so it'd be an asset for further developments and further yeah, things being happening within our Burnett region, so I think this is a great recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Any closing comments, Councillor Potter? No. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 11.7 is a notice of motion for LRCI, which stands for Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Funding, allocation phase 3, 2022, at page 202. And the background is that at Council's January General Meeting, a notice of motion was received that Council allocate the remaining $2,238,930 from the Australian Government's LRCO Phase 3 funding to a roads rehabilitation and renewals program to be delivered by 31 December 2022, and that officers bring a targeted works program of highest priority needs back to Council for consideration at the March Infrastructure Standing Committee. The recommendation, therefore, is that Council allocate the $2,238,930 from the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Phase 3 program to a roads rehabilitation and renewals program as outlined in the attached list. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff. Seconder? Councillor Henson. Thank you. Speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I was very keen to see this happen. I think given the state of the roads, the community was very supportive of us spending that additional money rather than on community infrastructure, but alternatively on these roads. Yeah, so just really keen to support this, and also keen to have a look at the roads that have been selected, because I honestly couldn't read it's too small, the presentation of the roads that are listed, so I'm keen to see what the recommendation is with regards to the list of roads, but keen to support the recommendation that we spend that money on roads.
Thank you, Councillor. And of course, for those watching today's meeting, Council was fortunate to receive $3,288,930, almost $3.3 million from the Australian Government, and an acknowledgement of the Australian Government support for local roads and community infrastructure is very much important, and we'd like to thank them for that, and our local members who've always supported our region, member Littleproud, O'Brien and O'Dowd. Council has looked to budget 300,000 of that towards additional funding to the Blackbutt CBD streetscape, 750,000 to the George Street car park, and now the remaining $2,238,930 to a road rehabilitation and renewal program across the region. So part of today's discussion is now we're going to now turn our minds to looking at that list that's referred to in the motion, the attached list, and we might hand over to you, General Manager Brennan, to take us through that with assistance of Manager Searle. Thank you, gentlemen. Oh, sorry, Ros, sorry. I was carried away talking. Over to you. Thank you.
Mayor. Mayor, I'd like to, through you, make an amendment that Burt Road Stage 1, chain 2.142 to chain 3.627 of the cost of $950,000 be put back onto the LRCI funding agenda.
Mr CEO, would that be a foreshadowed? Or was it a link to this? How do we deal with that one then? It would be amendment. Could you read that out, please, Councillor? Okay, so we've got that there. It's moved by Councillor Phillip. Mr. CEO, before we go to seek a seconder, how does that impact on that first one where we're talking about a list and the,
Well, Mayor, it would amend your list, so you would be, can't honestly own up the fact that I've added up all the individual numbers, but that would put the LRCI allocation over in total, I would think, Kevin, would it not? Yeah, so it would be amendment. We would have to add it in at the, as outlined in the amended attached list, and then list that statement underneath it. That would, I think, how it would read, Mayor.
yep, okay. So we'd have, so we'll deal with the amendment first, okay. All right, so do we have a seconder for the amendment, proposed amendment? Yes, Councillor Potter. Let's go to the debate. Councillor Froeloff, opening statements, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been fighting for Burt Roads since 2017, trying to get this up. There is major issues up there, as everyone is aware. We received emails from constituents that live up there, and I believe there's more traffic up there now because they've got the Debosia Plantations cattle farm, and there is an amount of people that do live on Burt Road, and there's also Hillview Cottages. That you can fix the dust issue on and on again, but it's not going to fix the problem that it's just we have to come back up there all the time. And I believe if we can do Burt Road as a stage one, you would unable to do it now with the whole lot, but as stage one, just to help with the dust where most of the houses are, would be beneficial to the residents of Burt Road. And it also joins on for Councillor. Burt Road is connected by 3 councillors, Division 1, Councillor Henshins and Councillor Shoemaker's areas.
Thank you, Councillor. Further speakers? Councillor Henshin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, fully supportive of this. Since I've come into council, it's been on the agenda, and I know all the other councillors in chambers are not there today. We've all got roads, and it would be nice to start somewhere and slowly tick them off one by one. But yeah, having conversation with people up on Burt Road and certainly what goes on and around up in that area, fully supportive of this and would like to see it added for sure. Yep.
Councillor Duff, did you have your light on previously?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sympathetic to the people of Burt Road, but the idea of this funding, this limited money that we have, 2.2 million, was about trying to address across the region the state of our roads with the potholes and the drainage issues. It was to do a broad campaign to address what we've got as a huge issue, not an isolated case for a dust suppressant. There are lots and lots of roads across our region where we would absolutely love to be able to put bitumen to suppress the dust. But in this environment right now, I think we would get huge community backlash if we spent $950,000, which is a big proportion of that money that we've fought for, to actually put on drainage and potholes and all sorts of issues that we have right across the region. I think that Burt Road needs to be treated as an isolated case in a capital project, but certainly not to come on this in this environment now with in the local roads of community infrastructure program. This was the intention of me moving this was all about doing equity across the whole region. People are screaming out for all of these potholes and drainage issues to be addressed, and I think, yeah, we would get massive community backlash if we spent all of the money on an isolated project to suppress dust. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Potter.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've been discussing Burt Road since 2016, really, and when Ros, because that was in the previous Division 3 part, Ros, Councillor Froeloff and myself used to share that road, and I remember our very first visit to Burt Road, I think it was about 2016, 2017. And even back then, there were huge issues with the road and the maintenance of that road. So I'm actually going to support this amendment, please. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
General Manager, so would that mean that the $950,000 to seal Burt Road under this amendment would come off the 2.2 million that we've got there for road renewals? Is that what we're doing here? And that would then bring that back to 1.288 million? And I suppose that's the first question. The second question is the list that you've brought forward, does it total up to the 2.238 million? Can you answer those two questions? Thank you, General Manager.
Certainly, Mayor Otto. A very interesting consideration of council, and of course council officers are completely happy to deliver whatever your decision is. It's an interesting question because this particular project in an earlier round of consideration by council was a recommendation by officers for your consideration under LRCI. So it has been put forward previously. Also very happy, Mayor Otto, not to particularly to sit on the fence, but with your recommendation in relationship to the more broader and focused expenditure on capital renewal. So we're similarly happy to bring forward this list that you now have as a second iteration of LRCI consideration. So to answer the second question, Mayor Otto, the way in which it would be dealt with is this project, if it was your decision to proceed with it, would leave balance funds to deal with in priority order that list that we've presented. So that list, which is primarily reseal work with some modest preparation, and I will defer to my manager colleague for any questions on that, but it was aimed squarely to follow what we understood your recommendation to be, which was to look at asset renewal projects, get the best bang for our buck and spread it across the region. So was very happy to do so, and we can still do that with balance funds should you wish to go back to the staff's earlier recommendation in relation to Burt Road. So we can do the combination as you suggest, and it would be the balance that you calculated.
Thank you, General Manager. Well, so I just want to work through this here now. So we've got $2.2 million that we allocated, and you put a list together of renewals, repairs and renewals. Renewals in relation to road rehab across the region. That comes up to 2.238 million. Now, if we resolve to do this, I just want to be clear what we're doing here. If we resolve to do this, that road renewals list will be cut back to 1.288 million. And we will have to then drop off some of the renewal projects that you've identified on your list. So what I'd like to do is just first of all make a couple of comments here from a finance portfolio perspective, and then I think we should work through, I'd like to do, councillors, work through that list so we can get a bit of a feel for what we're going to be not doing if we resolve to do this. Now, I understand the importance of Burt Road, but we'll just work through that list shortly. But before doing so, I've had, there's been email trails going back and forward from the residents of Burt Road and the Office of the Mayor over recent weeks. And as a result of that, the residents have made arrangements for me to meet with them on site at 5:30 tomorrow afternoon. I would extend the hand of invitation to councillors if you are available. That happened at the request of the residents. Now, I have spoken with one of the residents who has a business on the strip that is affected with the dust, and his comments to me were that since we did the gravel resheeting works up there, the dust issue, General Manager, has become worse. So his comments were that with the old section of gravel road is not as bad, but the newer section, whether it's a different material, Manager, that we've used, but he was just asking the question that it seems to have got worse with the new material we've used on the latest renewal works that we did on the gravel section there. There is some drainage issues, he tells me, with water flowing through into his property where he runs his business as well, off a paddock further up. So I suppose I'll be keen to hear from the residents as to what the issues are on tomorrow afternoon. I'm probably not, without preempting, I'm probably sitting on the fence on this one, but without preempting this, I'm probably keen to hear from the residents on tomorrow before I support this one. The other thing I want to make a point on here is, and I'm just playing the finance advocate here, is that if we spend $950,000 putting bitumen on Burt Road, that will add to the value of our road network. That will give rise to an additional depreciation expense. Now, we already have a $3 million deficit, Council, whereby we can't fund our depreciation for roads. What that means is that we have to then pull that cash out of our bank account if we want to achieve our sustainability ratio target of 90%. Because at the moment, we're not putting enough money in the kitty to cover all the road renewals that are required under our budget. Okay, so if we do this, that will make that even worse, because we'll have another $950,000 added to the asset value. In not spending that $950,000 on doing renewal work across the region, it will be a double whack, a double whammy, because it'll mean that we won't have the $950,000 worth of renewal work undertaken. That'll make it even harder for us to achieve our 90% sustainability ratio. So they're the realities of the financial situation we're in. So while I'm keen to get an outcome for the people of Burt Road, I understand the dust issue up there. I am concerned that we're going to create a bigger headache for ourselves here, because we're going to add another almost $1 million to our asset. That's going to increase our depreciation. That's going to create a bigger deficit, and that is going to mean that we're going to cut $950,000 out of our renewals program. We have an obligation to try and achieve that 90% target, and it is something that the audit office look at when auditing our council. Do we achieve our 90% sustainability ratio? To cut $1 million out of road renewals will make that even harder to achieve that 90%. That's why I'd supported this, on the basis that it was going to be renewals that will help us use external funding to fund renewals. So we weren't using our ratepayers' money on renewal works, we were using external government money on renewal works to compensate council for the fact that we can't fund our renewals ourselves because of our deficit. Because I just want to make those comments for starters. Having said that, if we could call on you, General Managers, to work us through the list and give us an understanding as to what's on your priority list at the moment and what are we likely to have to cut out if we do seal Burt Road. So would you mind just leading us through that, General Manager? Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I know that our manager has direct knowledge of these, so he will take us through that actual list. Your position, Mayor, in relation to the balance figure, my colleagues behind me confirm that's 1.288930 is the correct figure. So we would be looking at a reseal program totalling to 1.288930. Kevin, I will pass to you in relationship to going down through that list in priority, and I confirm the Mayor's position in relation to funding depreciation, and because we never are quite able to fully commit to funding our depreciation, funding towards that is positive. The balancing position, of course, any asset renewal project always increases asset value and extends life, and it increases our depreciation as well. So either way we go, if we're good asset managers, we do extend our life and increase our depreciation. But that's a problem that we have with owning these sort of assets. If I may pass to my colleague, please, Mayor.
Thanks, Jed. Councillors, just a little bit of a background before we have a look at these individual projects. So the Road Rehabilitation and Renewals program, I'm submitting 13 proposed projects, and they've been developed by considering the higher priority road asset renewal projects, also the timeliness of completing the works, and generally trying to focus on the higher order and higher traffic roads. Now, the focus for this program is very much so on the sealed road network. One of the key considerations is the timeliness of completing the nominated projects, particularly given that Council has significant flood recovery work as well as the normal capital program delivery. The major portion of these projects are bitumen resealing projects, with our First Avenue Floodway Reconstruction in Kingaroy being the exception. The focus is generally on our major road networks, and Edward Street, Wandai is the exception for that. In terms of our asset condition rating, there are other roads with similar or worse condition ratings, but with much less traffic, for example. And with these projects that are being proposed, it's felt that there will be more overall benefit gained by the community and less risk for council in terms of potential significant asset deterioration. So if we have a look at attachment A, and apologies for the difficulty in trying to understand all that information, it seems to have been squashed into the report. But essentially you have as attachment A the bitumen resealing program, and the top 13 projects, which all have photos attached, are the projects being recommended. So the first one there, Drayton Street in Anango, again bitumen reseal, and it's between Brisbane Street and Burnett Street. Edward Street in Wandai, and that's between McEwen Street and Hodge Street, again a bitumen reseal. We've got First Avenue in Kingaroy, and that's our floodway reconstruction. All of these projects are aimed at improving particularly the roads that are quite sensitive to wet weather, and we're continuously going back and patching again and again. Moving on, we've got Gore Street in Mergen, so that's between Lamb Street and heading southwest down past Jordan Street. I do note that Gore Street, the northern portion of Gore Street, is also in need of some rehabilitation. That's not included in this project, given that it is a asphalt surfacing and would require milling and filling. So that's a removal of the asphalt essentially and replacing, and that particular project is likely to find its way for consideration in next year's budget CapEx program. So that section of Gore Street is the southwestern portion. Again, a bitumen reseal. Next project there is Haley Street in Kingaroy, so that's between Youngman Street heading out to Thorn Street. Hart Street in Blackbutt is Creek Street to Blackbutt Street. River Road in Kingaroy between Walter Road and out to Barons Road. Now that River Road excludes the Kingaroy Street roundabout. That's a similar one to Gore Street, where it's in need of rehabilitation, but it does require the removal of the asphalt and replacement of it, and that'll probably find its way into the CapEx budget deliberations for the next financial year. The next project there, Council Runnymede Road, out near Runnymede, north of Nanango, and that's between Walsh's Road, heading east to the end of the bitumen. Quite a significant section there, 7.7 kilometres. Silverleaf Road from Bunya Highway out to approximately Barlil Road, again bitumen resealing. Nanango Brooklands Road between Canoon Road and Majors Road. And the final three projects, we've got Old Esk Road, and that's from the Somerset boundary out to about Armand Road. Appin Street West that's in Nanango, between Cairn Street and the Diagala Highway, and the final one there is the Tingora-Chelmsford Road, and that's from Bunya Highway just past Cushney Road. Tingora-Chelmsford Road's probably our most significant project there. Again, it's primarily bitumen resealing. It does exclude two portions of that road which are due for full pavement reconstruction, and they're currently nominated in the Transport Infrastructure Development Scheme as projects in coming years. I've also included, so they're the 13 projects. I've also included, just for Council Orr's information in Appendix B, the other various asset classes that we've got identified for asset renewal. So we're talking about bridges, concrete floodways, gravel resheeting, curb and channel, pavement rehab, as well as the dust seal register there. Again, all of these potential projects are renewal projects and exclude the proposed upgrade projects.
Yeah, thank you very much, Manager. Manager, just through you, General Manager, questions. Sorry, yeah.
Mayor, just in conclusion of Kevin's detailed explanation there, I wanted to just add that the preparation and the associated asset renewal project lists that you're seeing there are very late versions, almost complete versions of what will be presented to you to commence consideration on the 8th of April. So those lists are what we're working towards for capital consideration going forward, and we will finalise those lists and present them to you after we conclude our deliberations of operational budget items for infrastructure on the 8th of April. So we'll give Council some time to consider those other lists, but I'm just highlighting that they're not quite complete, but they're nearing completion, and they will be what you will see in consideration of asset renewal projects for your capital considerations next year. Any items out of the current list, should you choose to include Burt Road, will of course be the highest priority in the list that falls below it for consideration for reseals in your capital budget. So that would be the impact of what would happen. We would move them down into the balance list that you have there, just by way of mechanism.
Okay, thank you, General Manager. So we have 13 projects here, and they total 2.238 million. Is that correct? Okay, and from the top down, that's the highest priority in the view of officers?
No, they're not prioritised.
These aren't prioritised. No. Okay, so we would have to possibly look with council as to which ones stay in and which ones come out to balance it back to the 2.238 million. In addition to that, I know there are roads like Alfred Street East in behind the PCA. Is that in this list? Because I would have thought it would be a highly trafficked road with a lot of industrial activity, and it's in a terrible state. Alfred Street East, near the pedestrian crossing behind PCA. I know is this in the list?
Very aware of it, Mayor. And we're having a look just where it sits. It will be. I'm thinking there might be some pavement rehab in relationship to some of it, which of course is in the pavement rehabilitation list. As Kevin was explaining, some of the roads we're not including in the reseal if they've got other pavement repairs. So just right in the town centre, Kev, I don't know whether you can pick it straight off your list, but we might look as your consideration continues, see if we can get back to you.
If we could, thanks, gents. The other one, of course, is Industrial Avenue, Kingaroy Freight. We've got Kingaroy Hydraulics. A lot of industrial activity happens there. That road needs significant rehabilitation. I notice it's not on this list. A highly trafficked, economic, obviously key freight route economically for us in Kingaroy. There's a few others on here like Northern End of Gore Street. That's a bit concerning. McAllister Street, I know it's not mentioned. I know there's a lot of issues there. I've seen them. Look, Mr. CEO, I'm of the mind that there's a lot for the full council to consider here. We're making a big decision about $2.2 million worth of renewal works and possibly more in the budget cycle. Is there any reason under the standing orders why I can't move a procedural motion that these matters lay on the table in relation to a 11.7? Thank you, Mr. CEO. I'd now like to move a procedural motion that this matter lay on the table. For reconsideration by the Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting. In May 2022. I'll now move that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter, thank you. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Otto, Councillor Duff, Councillor Potter, Councillor Froelich, Councillor Hedge. We've got everyone, so that's been carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll now move on to Mr. CO, sorry.
That's fine, Mayor. So when that comes back, it'll come back. So we'll lift it off the table and it'll start at the amendment again. And then we'll just deal with them in sequence.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll start with the amendment again. We'll be lifted off the table in May. Thank you all. General Manager.
Mayor Otto, if I may answer your question, my learned colleagues from behind me have identified that both those roads that you mentioned, Alfred Street East and Industrial Avenue, are on our rehabilitation list, and further they are in the attachments on items that you have raised personally, and I knew that you had. So they are included in your attachment. I think it's the last attachment in the schedule that's before
excellent.
you, just for information.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Much appreciated. Thank you, General Manager and your managers. Okay, so 11.8 now, Council, is notice of motion planting trees for Queen's Jubilee program at page 220, whereby it is recommended, let's get the one up, that South Burnett Regional Council express an interest to be part of the planting trees for the Queen's Jubilee program by writing and contacting the three MPs, Little Proud, O'Dowd and O'Brien, from the electorates that cross the South Burnett, and that South Burnett Regional Council's infrastructure and community departments work together with interested councillors to develop a tree planting program and discuss opportunities for an associated commemorative event and report back to Council with a project proposal. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, a seconder. Councillor Henson, speakers. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've spoken to General Manager O'May because I was alerted to the fact that the timelines around this, that the members that we've identified had to have those proposals in, and the timelines have actually made it so that we missed the closing date, because the closing date is actually different from the members to the public. So the community closing date was April, and to get it to the members was March. So I spoke to Lou O'Brien's office to see if I know that I had already raised it with the Mergen Business Association, excited about the fact that we've got Queen Elizabeth Park, and they're having they wanted a celebration around Queen Elizabeth Park and putting some trees in there, which was part of our whole project. And so General Manager O'May, and he can elaborate on, actually submitted a project, and they've allowed into that. So we did. We were a little bit late, but they let it in. But I don't know if there's any other projects that have got up because of the timelines.
Thank you, General Manager O'May.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we had on our end a level of confusion. The guidelines actually have a closing date of the 11th of April, but the MPs all ran an expression of interest process prior to that, so they could whittle down the projects and then invite groups to submit a formal application by the 11th of April. So we contacted the officers, David Littleproud's officers. Their program was already oversubscribed by the time we contacted. But as Councillor Duff, Lou O'Brien's officer, we were allowed to submit an application, and so that's been put in basically for an avenue of trees in QE2 Park. It was probably our strongest project in the connection with the Queen's Jubilee, planting trees in Jubilee Park. So we've just late Friday afternoon, where it was, submitted an application which they have, and so it's basically in that assessment process now, and we'll hear back in due course.
Very much, General Manager. Anything further to that, Councillor Duff? No. Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Further speakers? Council? No? Councillor Henson? We're fine with that. Shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thanks for your work on that, General Manager Ray. That's much appreciated. We'll look forward to seeing how we go. 12.1, Business Disability Awards at 2:21, and the recommendation from the Standing Committee meeting is that South Burnett Regional Council provide in-principle support for the establishment of a Business Disability Awards event in the South Burnett, and continue to liaise with the event organisers to explore options. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Henson. Speakers, Councillor Potter.
Look, I think we've spoken about this one, but to have something like this within the South Burnett, they go really well in Toowoomba where they already have them. I think it would just be a fantastic opportunity for the people of the South Burnett.
Thank you, councillor. Further speakers? No? Shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 12.2, Sports Australia's Regional Sports Events Fund at 222, where it's recommended that South Burnett Regional Council endorse the Chief Executive Officer's actions in submitting an application to the Sports Australia's Regional Sports Events Fund Stream 1, small community sporting events for $10,000 to support local come and try skills days. Do we have a mover? Mover, Councillor Henson. Yep, seconded Councillor Potter. Speakers? Councillor Henson? No, you're fine. Councillor Potter?
Look, I've been contacted by various different groups throughout the South Burnett that would love to do come and try days. So this is fantastic, and thanks council for doing this.
Thanks, Councillor Potter. Thanks very much, Mr. CEO, for leading that one. Let's hope we get a good outcome there for the community. Okay, well, shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carry unanimously. Thank you all. 13.1 is a material change of use for 8 short-term accommodation units and proposed access easement at 3-5 Evelyn Street, Kingaroy, and described as Lot 13 and 14 on SP 212946. It's at 223 on the agenda, where the Committee of Council has considered this at a recent committee meeting. And out of that, the recommendation towards the back, 229, thanks, Mr. CEO. So the recommendation is that Council approve the material change of use for 8 short-term accommodation units and proposed access easement at 3-5 Evelyn Street, Kingaroy, described as lots 13 and 14 on SP 212946, subject to the following conditions. And there are conditions outlined on the public agenda from pages 229 through to page 232 as presented to council. Do we have a mover for such? Councillor Henson, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Froeloff, thank you. Speakers, Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, this is great work is in progress, and I'm sure if the public want to know more, there's plenty there for them to read, but there's certainly, with the recommendations in place, and there's a couple of pages of them covering from the survey plans through the stormwater, comprehensive report, and they're fully supportive of this. Great result.
Thank you, Councillor. Further speakers? We'll go to the vote. Yes, okay. Those in favour? Show of hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 13.2, placement of shipping containers on private land. Page 236. Again, this matter has been subject of discussions within committee within the community standing committee meeting held on the 9th of March, where committee received a report regarding information on the placement of shipping containers on private land across the South Burnett region. We have a recommendation there from the committee. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on this one, I'm just thinking that with regards to the shipping containers that are already right across our region, to put that for a period of no greater than 180 days is going to set the council up to just such a nightmare of looking at all of the shipping containers we've currently got. I was just wondering, is there any way that we can add to the recommendation that that's from now on, not in retrospect? Just to seek advice.
We'll just seek advice on policy application there from our CEO. Thank you, as to whether it would be applied retrospectively or not. Thank you.
Oh, Mayor, we'd have to take that under advisement. We really would. So whether you want to leave it on table until we get that information back, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Yeah, that's quite a complex matter there, Councillor Duff. I think we'd need to allow our staff to get to, our CEO to just do some research on that one to make sure we get that right. So Councillor?
I'm happy to move that we lay it on the table, a procedural motion that we lay it on the table until that information comes
Okay,
through.
good. Thank you. Bring it back next month. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Henson seconded. Thank you. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll look forward to that coming back with that further information next month. Thank you, Mr. CEO. 14.1, storm damage to Mount Warrulan Reservoir roof. That's at page 238. Again, this matter has been considered at length by the Infrastructure Standing Committee at their meeting on the 3rd of March. And a report was brought to Council on storm damage to Mount Warrulan Reservoir roof, and our technical officers came forward with some recommendations. From that, the committee has recommended to Council that Council calls for tenders with two options. For one, design and construction of existing roof replacement, with Council providing the temporary bypass storage, and two, design and construction of a new 5 megalitre reservoir with separate portions for roof replacement on the damaged reservoir. Do we have a mover? Councillor Froloff, seconded Councillor Potter. Speakers, Councillor Froloff.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm totally agreeable with this. We've looked at many options of how to fix the reservoir out at Warrulan, so yeah, I'm happy with the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Further speakers, Councillor Henson. No, you're fine. Thank you. Okay. Shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 15.1, South Burnett Sporting Shooters, request for land, shooting range, page 239. Now, again, this was considered at the Community Standing Committee meeting on the 9th of March, where the committee received a report regarding information on the South Burnett Sporting Shooters and their request for land for a shooting range. From that, the committee has recommended to Council that South Burnett Regional Council continue to liaise with the South Burnett branch of Shooters Union in relation to identification of a suitable site for the establishment of a shooting range within the region. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson. There's a bit of a delayed reaction. Yes, I think Councillor Henson's there. Okay, no, we haven't got him. Councillor Potter, can we take you? Councillor Froloff for seconder. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Speakers? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We've got Councillor Henson. Yes, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 15.2, consider increased support to Bitumen Homestead caretaker at page 240. And again, committee has considered the matter and recommended to Council that Council increase the financial contribution to the caretaker's allowance by $5,720 in the 21-22 operational budget. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Henson. Speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one's been discussed at committee meeting, but just supporting the Bitumen Homestead. They do a massive job out there, and to give, I think the caretaker, there's so much land that they have to maintain and mow, and it's just a small increase to the allowance. And I think that if we can, get good caretakers and continue to look after that wonderful facility out there, that it's money well spent. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor, and thanks to Councillor Henson and Councillor Duff and our properties team under your leadership, General Manager O'May, for the work you've done in assisting the committee. If there's any further speakers? No, we'll go to the vote then. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 15.3, future use of 32 Walter Road, Kingaroy at 241. Again, considered by committee and recommended that South Burnett Regional Council continue to progress divestment opportunities for the reserve for Park 32 Walter Road, Kingaroy, being Lot 1 on RP 852419, particularly to seek advice on the costs associated with divestment, rezoning issues, access and drainage issues as raised in public consultation, and a report be brought to the July Community Standing Committee meeting. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded. Councillor Duff, thank you. Speakers? Go straight to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 16.1 Federal Advocacy Action Plan 2022 at page 242, where the recommendation is that South Burnett Regional Council approve the Federal Advocacy Action Plan 2022 for distribution. I might go to Mr. CEO just before we get this one out for debate. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate the throw. There was, in trying to prep that up, we just didn't have the feedback back from the parties that we went out to prior to the standing committee. Hence, it's been brought straight back to the council meeting. I'll just bring it up. There is an add to on that would be as amended. Some of the late feedback from Teleconnect was that there should be a mayor's foreword in it, which is easily done, but it just couldn't get the agenda. And Councillor Potter also raised that we didn't have a line in there about homelessness, which was a good pickup. So I'm suggesting that we'll fall in behind LJQ's calls for the National Summit and the Queensland prioritisation of homelessness, so we can add that in and push in behind it. I'm just trying to bring, sorry, Mayor, I'm just getting the right screen up. Tisby also gave back, so they gave, there's been dollar figures put in there. Some of their strong advice was that even if they're just estimates are quite often, but you need to put the dollar figure in there as well so that they know what you're asking for. CIFR index a disadvantage, so we put a lot more around the CIFR index because actually as it turns out, and was speaking with the disaster recovery, if you include Weipa Town Council, which isn't normally included in the 77 LGAs in Queensland, but Weipa would make 78 if you include Weipa Town Council. South Burnett region sits at 58 on the CIFR index of relative disadvantage. Councils like Gundawindi, Lockyer Valley sit quite substantially higher than us. So when you take the Indigenous community councils out and a couple of the very small, like the Croydons of the world, we're right down there as far as the bottom of that CIFR index in Queensland. So for relative disadvantage, digital disadvantage, and then the rest of the feedback that we got from both Teleconnect and if I can just for the sake of time, was just broad, move page one here, do this, do that, shuffle the order around. So actually kind of pleased. There's a couple of transcription. There's one of the graphics is squished up as it's been converted across to PDF. So they're recognised. So it's been gone through. So those, if anyone picks up a couple of those little typos in there, they've been identified as to, and they were part of the, don't ask me why, but the PDF conversion, it squishes some of the graphics, so we will fix that. And I think the budget's being brought down next week, and so I'd really like to get this finalised and get it out, so at least we can go. Certainly what we've learned out of this is, and the feedback we got on us elsewise and the earlier versions of it, is a much more substantive book, and particularly with the communications officer restarting again, is we can take these and have it as a permanent advocacy. Yes, tweak it for the state and federal elections, but have something, keep it as an electronic version on the website. Certainly that feedback from Teleconnect was quite good. And we can develop it up, and so it's had a look. Tisby sent us a copy of the Townsville and Cairns, and whilst they're much bigger councils with much more resourcing in this space, but that booklet format that lives live, is a live electronic document. They're very good. And so looking at that, but it would be then just updated as council changes by resolution, whatever it chooses to change at whatever given point in time. But then that would be a simple process of just updating that for the election cycles. So yeah, so both out of the state government one we did a couple of years ago, the evolution into this one, working out within our own internal resources what we're able to achieve, and I think the next version of it will be bigger and better again.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. In light of Mr. CEO's comments, I'd like to now move that South Burnett Regional Council approve the Federal Advocacy Action Plan 2022 for distribution as amended. We have a seconder, Councillor Henson. Thank you very much. Now, I'm just going to speak to that. First of all, Mr CEO, thank you very much for the work that you've put into this. Under pressure, with short notice, during our budget cycle, along with a whole range of other things that are happening across our region at the moment. Yes, the federal budget is coming out next week, and it's great to see we're getting on the front foot with which what I would like to present and commend to Council as a quality document from which we can advocate between now and the federal election for the needs of our region. Now, just to give those who are watching an understanding, it provides a strong background as to the vision and commitment of the region, of the South Burnett and our communities, an action plan for the future. It provides a lot of background in relation to the economic and social circumstances we find ourselves within, in relation to data around some of those key indices, data around the number of small businesses we have in our region, and the impacts of certain events. It goes to some really key issues, water infrastructure first of all, where it goes to issues around viability of converting Gordon Brook Dam to irrigation use and establishing off-site water storage from supply from Bitumen Dam. It goes to Barley Weir, to hydrological and economic assessment of a potential weir at West Baramba, targeted investment on accessing water for irrigators in Blackbutt. It puts forward to the government a range of issues in relation to our road networks, Mundubra-Geelong Road, Memorandie Gordon Brook Road, Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road, Baillie Road, Tangerengi Bridge, rail trails, cycleways, footpath connectivity. It talks to government about connecting our highways and freight routes throughout the region so that we can link to ports such as Bundaberg, Wellcamp and Brisbane, increase support for roads to recovery and LRCI funding programs, for support to 10% for our regional council. It also goes to financial governance and asset management, where we talk about support for the increase to 1% of taxation revenue in FAGS funding from the federal government. It talks to government about supporting maintenance community health services, including mental health and suicide prevention programs, biosecurity initiatives and funding for biosecurity, regional economic development in relation to renewable energy projects, food manufacturing and processing, development opportunities to improve the Kingaroy Airport through a master plan, glider hub and air park development, national infrastructure for nature-based tourism, Bunya Mountains National Park, for example, greater diversification of agribusiness and support for the development of the Coolabunnya sale yards, data communications and black spot, transformation project in Kingaroy as a smart country hub with an investment in QCN dark fibre, disaster recovery and system fail-safe for community of service, including continuity of service, including ABC rebroadcast tower in the South Burnett Regional Council area. Development of an online self-service portal for ratepayers, request applications and account status, which of course comes at a cost to council. So a very comprehensive document, covers, I believe, all of the big ticket items that we need to advocate to council on, and I would thank again our senior staff for the work done in developing this and commend it to council for adoption here today. So that's my view. Further speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a fantastic idea what the CEO has put forward to actually have this as a document that's on our website and everywhere, because we need to be able to always articulate what our priorities are. And I'd love to actually see that, because that's a federal advocacy document, and I think we should start sooner rather than later on working on a state one, so that we've got that in the front and centre whenever the Mayor has an opportunity to negotiate. He knows our priorities, and I just think it's a wonderful way forward. And congratulations, Mr. CEO and Mr. Mayor, on the work that you have done to present this document. And I'm hoping that we get it to the politicians sooner rather than later, because the federal election is just around the corner.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Henson, Councillor Potter. Happy with that? Okay. Can we go to the vote? We'll go to the vote. Yep, can do. We'll go to the vote on this one then. Those in favour? We've got Councillor Henson, so that's been carried unanimously. We'll just note that Councillor Frodoff just had to duck out momentarily.
Mr Mayor, just to add, I did drop out the roadside grazing, which is because it is purely a state issue, and councillors would have saw this issue after several years of campaigning. We had a win yesterday, and I would acknowledge the state government's change of the stock routes and the other Amendment Act that are coming through, where 100% of the fees for roadside grazing will be given to the councils, and council can make a decision as to when it's hardship or not, as if it charges a fee or just allows roadside grazing and so that consultation period with the state has finished, and the advocacy, and it's only a little win, but it's a significant win, and it's nice to see when they get to the back end.
Thank you very much, Mr CEO, and I'd like to acknowledge the work that our council has done in partnering with other rural councils to take this issue up with the state government through the LGAQ, we've put motions through the LGAQ on this, we've advocated independently, we've seized every opportunity to speak to any minister or government representative on this, and I know that happened well before my time. So to the previous councils, to the current council, including our staff, thanks very much, councillors and staff. This is a great outcome for our council across a whole range of areas. When we can get cattle grazing on those road reserves, it's going to make a big difference in many, many aspects. So well done, great news, and acknowledge and thank the Queensland State Government for listening and changing their policy on this. Thank you. Would anyone else like to add anything there? Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, this is something that many councils have advocated for a long time, and finally the state government has acknowledged it. I mean, 2 years ago, the state was in the grips of the worst drought in ever, if not 150 years. It was debated long and hard, and there was many arguments about it. And I, for one, of course, being rural, know only too well what the implications are when you put cattle on the road. And as I look out my front door at the moment, I actually have a couple of cows on the road that shouldn't be there. So once the general meeting's over, I better tend to them. Or I could get a visit from our local council representative. But a great result. This is, and I'm sure council will take it on board, each and then everybody's individual permit, and as part of my portfolio and report each month, we see that one of the sections in my report is grazing permits, and there's very few of them. I hope this encourages people to diligently use the facility on stock routes and certainly grazing permits. So I think it can be a tool that can benefit everybody, not just the rural primary producers, but also council, along with our emergency services and the control of fire or the risk of fire in certain times of the year and places. So yeah, when I received that email, it was certainly a win-win situation there, and yeah, there's a lot of work going into that, so a great result.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, just like to reiterate everything that Councillor Henson has said. It's been a long battle, but it's been it's fantastic news, because it's put a bad taste in everyone's mouth to know that in the middle of a drought that we've had to pass on those fees. And I know that has been a deterrent, and people have thought, you know, what a council thinking and putting the blame on us. So it's great that the state government have come on board, and yeah, I'd like to thank the state for listening. It's good to know that you know, that we do have a voice. Sometimes we get frustrated and think that, you know, what we push for doesn't ever get heard, but it's a great outcome for rural Queensland. Yeah, just a fantastic achievement. So yeah, 100% support what Councillor Henson has said about supporting the rural industries and the safety and managing our the land in front of mostly people's properties. They want to be able to graze that without having to pay a fee. So I just think it's wonderful that we have that option now, that we can waive that fee if we so desire. So thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to 16.2, future of visitor information centres at 260, where this is considered again at a committee meeting. And the committee have recommended to council that South Bennett Regional Council, 1, develop a visitor service strategy, 2, formally request an extension to accreditation relief to 30 June 2022, whilst the operation of the VIX is considered through future budget discussions. 3, conduct a media campaign to encourage volunteers and alerting the community to the importance of accreditation. And 4, engage with LTO, Visit South Burnett, our RTO, Southern Queensland Country Tourism, and Tourism Queensland, and request a meeting and roundtable discussion with Council to address the matters tabled in the report. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff. A seconder? Councillor Froloff. Thank you. Speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm really keen to push this one. I am so concerned about our visitor information centres. I do not want to lose accreditation if we can at all help it, because I think a lot of people don't understand the importance of accreditation and what that means, and how if you've got accreditation you can draw on other like the NDIS and different ones. We can utilise those volunteers. So I just wanted to get the message out there to everybody about why accreditation is important, but also the importance of visitor information centres and the risks that we face now with losing that accreditation because we haven't got volunteers. And I think that we would be able to get the volunteers if they are alerted to the fact that of the risk, and also I'd just like to see us do a real volunteer drive, and I'm hoping that the councillors will come on board and perhaps, and I'm going to start and I've spoken to the CEO about actually the councillors actually being able to work in the visitor information centres on the weekends. I just think we could set an example by doing that, and because we would be walking the talk, and just really keen to get all of these different groups, the RTO, the LTO, Southern Queensland Country Tourism, all on board to try and fight the good fight. And I know the community supports keeping those visitor information centres open. It's okay to say that people want to use an app, but there's nothing like that friendly, smiling face of a volunteer in a visitor information centre. So just really keen to push this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further speakers? Okay. Just like to thank our CEO again for the work he's done here. Plenty on his plate, and this is another issue he's had to contend with, and is doing a good job in consulting and working with his staff across the VIX to progress this matter, and let's hope we get an outcome that's going to be in the best interest of our community. So let's go to the vote then. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Council, the next item is 17.1, Delegated Authority Reports. Recommendation is that the Delegated Authority Report be received. The items, list of applications is as presented in the agenda. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter. Seconder, Councillor Froloff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 17.2, list of correspondence pending completion of assessment report at 263. It's recommended that the list of correspondence pending completion of assessment report be received. The report is as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Henson, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Duff. Speakers? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. There are no questions on notice at item 18, so we'll move on to item 19. And we'll just get that up on the screen. Okay, item 19, Council is recommended that Council considers the confidential reports listed below in a meeting closed to the public in accordance with section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012. 19.1, payment proposal for overdue rates, various lots. This matter is considered to be confidential under section 254J-D of the Local Government Regulation, and the Council is satisfied that discussion on this matter in an open meeting would, on balance, be contrary to the public interest as it deals with rating concessions. 19.2, procurement of Kingaroy Transformation Project specialised components, and this matter is considered to be confidential under section 254J-G of the Local Government Regulation. The Council is satisfied that discussion on this matter in an open meeting would, on balance, be contrary to the public interest as it deals with negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving the local government for which a public discussion would be likely to prejudice the interests of the local government. And 19.3, application to waive water consumption charges. and this matter is considered to be confidential under section 254J-D of the Local Government Regulation, and the council is satisfied that discussion of this matter in an open meeting would, on balance, be contrary to the public interest as it deal with rating concessions. Do we have a mover? Councillor Froeloff, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Potter. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll now close out into confidential committee at 12:32 p.m. Okay, welcome back into open council. We have three matters, council, to attend to. 19.1, payment proposal for overdue rates on various lots. It's recommended that one, office recommendation is that one, council agrees to the payment plan for the three lots being privately transferred, lots 67, 79 and 80, as laid out by the property owner with the following conditions. Those conditions are as presented, items A through to E, as presented to council on screen. And two, council does not agree to the proposal to waive rates to the value of $8,000 under the sale price for any parcel that is sold where the sale price only just covers or fails to cover the amounts outstanding. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Henson, thank you. Speakers? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll now proceed to item 19.2, procurement of Kingaroy Transformation Project specialised components. In accordance, recommendation is that in accordance with section 235 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the Chief Executive Officer be delegated to purchase proprietary and sole supplier products for the Kingaroy Transformation Project. Do we have a mover? Yes, Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Henson. And do we have any speakers? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 19.3, an application to waive water consumption charges. It's recommended that council agree in this instance to waive the water consumption charges for assessment 20102- 5 zeros and 3 zeros, it's a long number, to the value of, as shown on screen, to the value of $385.80, due to this being a high value compared to previous rating periods. We have a mover from Councillor Henson. Thank you, Councillor Henson. And a seconder, yes, Councillor Potter, thank you. Speakers? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. That concludes our meeting, Mr. CEO.
Mayor, the only matter is Councillor Henson expressed interest in 19.1 at the beginning of the meeting. If I may paraphrase for the councillor, it was a mistaken identity, and so once we got into closed session, it was realised. And Councillor Henson, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just for the records. We won't note it as a conflict because thought it was a different party than what it turned out to be. So please, Councillor, you speak, but we will. The council participated and did not leave the room.
Yeah, thank you, CEO Mark. Yeah, appreciate that, and that's part of it we've had before, and not knowing just exactly where that's coming from at times. So, hence is why I brought that forward. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. CEO. It was remiss of me not to mention that, and thank you for covering off on that. So just clarify that Councillor Henson, once the matter was clarified and clear, we had more detail, was able to establish that there was in fact no conflict of interest on his part. Was there any conflict of interest from any other councillor in relation to 19.1? And as such, the matter was attended to by the full council in attendance today. Okay, having now clarified that, thank you all. We'll now look to close the meeting. Thank you all for your participation. One thing though, Councillor Potter, before we wrap up.
Yeah, thank you. I think Councillor Duff may have a few words as well. I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Froloff for being such a wonderful councillor for her division and for being such a wonderful friend as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duff.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to thank you for your contribution to the region over the period of time that you've been a councillor. It's a tough gig, and thank you sincerely for the work that you've done in this chamber. And I know that you've always had the community's best interests at heart, and you fight the good fight for your community, and that's justified by putting forward Bert's Road even today. So congratulations on your term as a councillor.
Okay, anyone else? No, we're all fine, yeah. Yeah, I think we're all feeling the same, Ross. Thanks very much for everything you've done and do, and certainly wish you all the best into the future. Yeah. Okay, well, on that note, we'll close out this meeting and wish everyone a great rest of day. Thank you all for your participation.